Well, welcome in MLB Network's Jon Morosi. Jon, welcome back. Last time you joined in Yankees Unloaded, you were running around at Comerica Park to watch Tarek Skubal, and the Jazz Chisholm trade just happened, right? So there was a lot going on. We definitely took it closer to the buzzer last year. So We wanted to give it some breathing room here. Welcome back.
Thanks, Gary and Jake. Great to be with you. You guys do a great job on the pod. And the one thing about this time of year is you try to be as accurate as you can about what's going on while fully realizing that if we look at this podcast on August 1st, everyone's going to say, Morosi, what were you thinking? Everything changed 9 different ways in the last 9 days before the deadline. So it's why this is my favorite time of year.
Yeah, it's the volatility of the job, and you know what you signed up for. So,
Amen.
Obviously, and Jon, you know the Yankees right now, they're currently 3 games back, and they just had a heroic, it felt like a win off the bat of Ben Rice, right? Hits a big home run to take a 5-4 win in Toronto, and they've got some holes, right, on this roster. You're talking about third base, shortstop, obviously, and Anthony Volpe. He just made his league-leading 13th error on the season. I think a lot of us we assume nothing's going to happen there at shortstop, at least in the short term. But the name that's floating around right now, and it's at third base, is Eugenio Suarez. And that's a name that Yankees fans are hearing a ton. They're definitely afraid of what it might cost. What are you hearing as far as how interested the Yankees are in this player?
They're certainly in the mix. A lot of teams are. Suarez is a very popular player. The Mariners, of course, they've had him before. They like him. The Cubs may still be involved. I certainly think the Yankees would be well supported to say, listen, in talking to the Diamondbacks, we're not going to give you Spencer Jones for a 2-month rental. So I would say to all Yankee fans not to worry about that possibility. I think Jones, I realize at 24, you'd expect him to be in the big leagues now. And I think if he was with basically 28 other teams, he'd probably already be in the big leagues. But he's had a very productive year, OPS over 1,000. You don't give up that player for a rental. I would not give up George Lombard Jr. for a rental. Now, we'll see how things play as you get closer to the deadline. There are other players out there who actually, I think in some ways fit the Yankees, maybe not quite as well as Suarez does, because I think his power in that ballpark, he would be dynamic for them and just a perfect fit in so many ways. But a player like Jonathan India, if the Royals end up actually being sellers, there's actually some control on India for next year. And I just think given the uncertainty right now surrounding the Yankees infield, you wonder again about Cabrera coming back next year too. And certainly the ongoing questions. India's not really a shortstop right now. The questions that you mentioned about Volpe, not knowing again who your third baseman is going to be next year either. I think if you get somebody with a little control, you're a little more likely to be comfortable giving up a controllable asset. Now, I'm not suggesting that you would give up Spencer Jones for Jonathan India right now, but I think it does make you a bit more comfortable maybe giving up someone who has control if you're going to have a player in Jonathan India for 2026 and not just 2025, which is the case with Eugenio Suarez.
I feel like we just went back in time. Weren't we talking about Jonathan India last year and he's on a new team and everything? It is funny how that works. But, Jon, I want to ask you, is there a trade target for the Yankees you've heard that really isn't being talked about much and you think could really be an option that maybe more people should be pushing?
Well, I'll say this. I think a team to watch very carefully, and I don't have it confirmed that there's been a conversation or an inquiry, but this is something to watch here going forward, is the potential of a deal with the Twins. And the reason why is the Twins, I think they have their players grouped in basically 2 areas. It's the guys who are pending free agents, one of whom is Harrison Bader, who I don't think is necessarily going to be coming back to the Yankees at this moment in time. But Bader is likely to be available. They have some bullpen guys that could move. And they also have a very interesting starting pitcher in Joe Ryan. I don't think that Joe Ryan will get traded this month. I really don't. However, if you were to think about the type of team and farm system that could overwhelm the Twins with an offer for Joe Ryan, it would be the Yankees with a player like Spencer Jones or George Lombard Jr., for example. And I think it's important with Lombard, and I love Lombard, to remember that he's 20. He just got to Double-A. and he's hitting around 200. So you've got to give him some time. We have to remember that you've got someone in Volpe who basically did step by step very similar things to what Lombard is doing now, and Volpe is struggling right now. Now that doesn't mean that Lombard's going to struggle in the same way, but we have to remember that we can't fall victim to the notion of the backup quarterback always being better than the starter. You gotta let him take some time here and not rush George to the major leagues right now. So I think this, and it maybe connects a bit to the conversation about Volpe. I agree with the premise that there's almost no player. Maybe I'll say it even more strongly. There's really no shortstop out there readily available at the deadline who I would describe as being comparable to Volpe when he's Volpe. Okay, when he is the player that he can be, that we have seen him be at the major leagues. There's not a frontline shortstop that's just there. The Jays are not going to trade Bo Bichette to the Yankees. That's not going to happen. Now, are there potential depth guys at shortstop who, depending on how significant these defensive woes become, might give you a little bit of stability there? Maybe a team, and again, it's unlikely that this team would help the Yankees in the circumstance. But the Rays do have some depth because Ha-Seong Kim has re-entered the active roster. Taylor Walls, excellent defender at short. Jose Caballero is a very good, versatile utility guy. They now have a surplus. The Rockies actually have a surplus at the position. These are not frontline players, but if the idea is now that, again, Volpe's way down in the lineup, if you're just trying to get defensive stability, there are probably guys out there who could just give you catch the ground ball, make the throw kind of stability while Volpe figures this out. It just seems like things have sped up. And again, it's not easy to play in New York, especially not when you're from just the other side of the river and it feels like everybody from your second grade classmates to your chemistry teacher are all watching and pressurizing these moments. So I empathize with what Anthony's going through in that respect. But if they do want to add in some defensive certainty, there are players out there, but no one really of the name recognition of the guy they've already got right now in Anthony Volpe.
Yeah, John, and what worries people, of course, is when you talk about depth and maybe getting a player who can do what they're looking for, a guy who can field the ball, throw the ball, and maybe hitting is not his thing, a depth piece. Well, also when you look at Volpe, he's playing every day, right? They're not sitting him at all. They're not necessarily using guys who are good defensive shortstop maybe in their system. They're not using him in that way. So that's what worries people. But John, I'm definitely curious because right now I think the Yankees' biggest problem is their volatility in their bullpen. And that's been a huge problem. We're seeing guys like Ian Hamilton, Jonathan Loaizaga, and obviously the Yankees had high hopes for this player, and he pitched today, and it didn't necessarily go well. It's not much of a surprise to Yankees fans. How aggressive, and as far as we just had a title for one of our videos, is how many names do the Yankees need to bring in here? How many names do you think are realistic that we can say, okay, maybe if you can go get a Duran, right? How many names do you think the Yankees are looking at, 2 or 3 relievers, or do you think they're looking to maybe bring in one guy they trust?
Well, Gary, as you were asking the question, the number popped into my mind of 2. Now, 3 would be, that's almost changing out half of your bullpen pieces in one day or one deadline, which is kind of hard to do. It's been done before, but that's a lot of turnover at one deadline. I think 2.
That's an overhaul.
Yeah, it is. 2 is reasonable, and I also think is fair to expect. You just mentioned Yohan Duran with the Twins. I think Varland could be an upgrade there. Griffin Jacks. Again, the price tag on some of these guys, especially those with more control, will be higher. Danny Coulomb, I think, with the Twins is a bit more readily available, you could say. But there are a number of teams, even those that have ugly records right now, and that would include the Rockies with someone like a Jimmy Herget. I think he's an option and a possibility. The Marlins have some bullpen pieces that they could move, but a lot of teams need bullpen. The other thing I'll say on behalf of the relievers, because I agree it's been a weakness and it's fair to point it out, the other thing is that the rotation hasn't exactly been going a CC Sabathia 8-inning start every time out.
That's right.
And again, not that you're expecting Schlitter or Stroman to do that. Obviously, the last start out for Fried previous to his start coming up Wednesday, as we're having this conversation, that was an abbreviated one. So when you're, as Jim Leland would always say, and we know Jim Leland well, of course, he always says your bullpen works when you're using it when you want to, as opposed to when you have to.
God, I love that.
And Aaron Boone lately has been using the bullpen a lot when he has to, as opposed to, wow, I love this matchup. I want to get him into the game now. It's, oh my gosh, my starter's out of the game and I've got to bridge now 4 innings. How do I do this math right now with the guys I've got? That's where it's at. I just think this team, and maybe Gary and Jake, what concerns me a bit here is bullpens should get better a little bit. If it's a fixable situation, sometimes just the fatigue of the first half accrues a little bit. You step away for the All-Star break and you come back and you're a little better. It really hasn't gotten better. This doesn't seem like it's a situation where just getting a little more rest will fix things. So I'm a little worried about where the bullpen is. The good news is
makes 3 of us.
Right. There you go.
Yes.
The good news is there are plenty of teams who will trade you a reliever right now. That is the market dynamic. The Guardians are an example of a team like that. Again, we've talked about the Royals a bit. The Twins. There are some players out there that I think would help the Yankees. It's now just a question of cost. And believe me, every other GM, the other 29, they watch all the same games that we're talking about, and they know how panicked, to use a strong word, the situation is becoming with the New York Yankees. So they know that from a leverage standpoint, Cashman doesn't exactly have a lot of it. And so I'll be curious to see if some teams might even go the buy and sell route, a team that's on the bubble, maybe like the Angels or a team like the Padres. Padres have a great bullpen. To think about where they might be able to go. Maybe they're looking for a piece here to add, but they can also trade someone. For example, the Padres, they've basically got 2 leverage closers in Adam and Suarez. Maybe you trade one of the 2 of them. So I think you're going to see a very creative deadline, which makes it fun for all of us to talk about, where you've got some teams that don't neatly fit into the buy-sell bucket, and you're just hearing about more baseball trades, which I think actually makes for a very, very fun, entertaining deadline.
It's fun. Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. I think, John, the team that really interests me the most is the Pittsburgh Pirates, because, you hear Mitch Keller. It feels like every day now they're getting closer, they're inching or whatever. But I'm actually really fascinated, and it took me a while to get on this boat, but I'm really fascinated about the prospect of bringing in who I would believe is, if he's not the best, he's one of the best defensive third basemen in the league, and Ke'Bryan Hayes, and then going out and getting David Bednar. And who knows, maybe you bring back Caleb Ferguson. I personally wouldn't do that. But do you see the Pirates as well as kind of like an interesting fit for the Yankees, where, we could be looking at kind of a bigger trade, maybe, kind of reminiscent to like the White Sox years ago when they went and got Todd Frazier and Robertson and I think Canely as well. Do you see it as something like that, or are they kind of out on this?
I think it's actually a great idea and a great concept, because we know the Pirates are selling. They're not going to sell Skeen, so we know that. But Keller definitely could be available. I think you mentioned Ke'Bryan Hayes, who, by the way, has had a bit of a down year offensively. And so I think some scouts are wondering, is this who he is now? We know the defense is great, but what's going on with the bat? I do think, again, Yankee Stadium, that lineup, that excitement, certainly he's grown up around the game. I think you would expect that. I think he would rise to the occasion of playing for the New York Yankees. And I agree with Bednar. Bednar has pitched on Team USA at the Classic. He's been a closer in his hometown. His value is back up now. He had a rocky last season, better now. I agree. I think that if the one thing about the Pirates, though, is they have to make sure that they, quote unquote, I don't know if win the deal is a fair statement, but there's so much sensitivity now surrounding what's going on with Skeens, just the credibility of the organization, to where actually in that sense, Jake, I would say that trading with the Yankees might actually help, because by definition, if you're going to be getting someone like Hayes or a controllable starter like Keller, Jones is probably in the deal, or Lombard is probably in the deal. I wouldn't say that for sure, but if you go that far, the Pirates would say, hey, I need to get a name guy from you, or maybe even a younger major leaguer. You would not like to. It'd be hard to say, yeah, I'll give you Ben Rice or I'll give you Volpe. I mean, that's kind of you're spinning your tires a bit. But I think that's where this year's deadline becomes interesting. It's not just trading. It's not a binary, okay, prospect for major leaguer. What about a younger major leaguer at a position of some depth, which you could say the Yankees have a little bit with Rice, versus, again, looking at other options elsewhere. I would say, though, and again, before I talk myself into trouble there, I don't think Ben Rice is getting traded, and certainly he just hit a massive home run. But my point is that's the type of construct that a team like the Pirates, if they're saying, listen, if I'm going to give you Mitch Keller, who's all-star level starter, I want your young, controllable player. And really, Ben Rice only has effectively one more year of service than Spencer Jones does, if we're being fair about that. So they're somewhat similar players. And by the way, if you are someone that looks at Ben Rice as largely in this construct a DH type player, depending on how you look at things, Spencer Jones can DH just as easily as Ben Rice could. Now, I realize you got Stanton there. There's other considerations involved. But I think you look at this and say, if teams start asking for Ben Rice, what does that mean for how quickly Spencer Jones could fit into the equation here? Internally, I can promise you this is how teams operate. If you called up, if they had to guarantee to give you an answer, the Yankees know internally who they believe. I don't know who this is, but they would be able to tell you right now who is a better player over the next 5 years. Is it Rice or is it Jones? There's a reasonable debate to be had among baseball people, especially when you fold in different defensive abilities, Rice's ability to at least be a backup / third catcher, play first base, whatever it might be. You got an older first baseman now in Goldschmidt. There's a lot of different things to weigh out there, but I would think that'd be a fascinating conversation if you polled like 25 pro scouts who's going to have the better next 5 years, Jones or Rice. I think that'd be a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. And I loved what you brought up earlier with Jim Leland. You mentioned that you want to you're going to use your bullpen when you want to, not when you need to. And that's how you keep them fresh, is how you keep them ready to go. And Jake and I, just about a week ago, we're talking about the fact that Aaron Boone loves to use his bullpen. And it just seems to be, no matter if you've got that super bullpen or if the bullpen looks like the way it looks today, he just tends to use it the same type of way. He continues to go to the well. And we even ventured to say maybe the Yankees should just focus on getting 2 to 3 bullpen arms and just lean in to who their manager is. And I'm curious to know, do you think the way that Boone manages games in terms of really going to the bullpen as soon as possible, do you think this impacts the Yankees going after a starting pitcher like Zach Gallen, maybe a Merrill Kelly?
Yeah, it's a great point, Gary. I think that in a lot of ways, they probably need someone that gives them innings. Again, I'd even mention a Seth Lugo, who the Royals are looking at as basically a pending free agent. He has a player option for next year, but probably would choose to become a free agent just based on how well he's pitching again.
Absolutely.
There are guys out there, again, even like an Adrian Hauser with the White Sox. I agree, Gary, that I think the idea here is getting a starter who gives you innings is not just the value goes beyond the innings that he's giving you. It's that you're going to therefore get a better version of your bullpen as a result. This is not a team. This is not the 09 rotation of like CC and AJ Burnett and Phil Hughes and Jabba at that point was kind of in a different role. But the point is that rotation, Girardi just let those guys go. And then it was a short look for the bullpen. This is just not that kind of a team. And Boone's going to be careful with Fried, who's in year 1 of a mega long-term deal. Schlitter is just in his first very quick look at the major leagues. Stroman has battled injury. Rodon probably is the guy that's earned the right among this current group to kind of go the longest. He's probably got that credibility to go deep into games in terms of what he's been able to already do in a Yankee uniform. I think the Yankees do need to your point, give Boone better options because he is the kind of manager. And I'm lucky in the job I have to be around a lot of different managers. Aaron is someone that trusts his guys. And I think as players, they really appreciate that. all you can ask for as a player is to be put in a situation to succeed and have an opportunity. And then your performance is your own to sort of embrace or succeed or fail, however you end up doing it. But opportunity is good. These are all great athletes. They're Major League Baseball players. And I think that, I remember, again, to quote Leland again, Leland would always say, if he might get beat in a tie game with his third or fourth best reliever, because that's just who he had to use in that situation. He would always say, if the guy's here, I'm going to pitch him. I have to, because if I go to Devin Williams every night, no matter what the score is, he's going to be on the IL in 3 days. I can't do that. So I think it's important you're right. Aaron Boone is even among the group of managers is someone who really likes his players. He does. And I think all managers do. I think Aaron Boone really enjoys the what his players can do and tries to find situations to build up their confidence. And we're seeing that, by the way, in how he's handling Volpe. If he was trying to send a message that he didn't trust Volpe anymore or didn't believe it was still in there, he would have benched him a month ago. And he's still running him out there because basically he thinks that's what Volpe needs to get feeling good again. Maybe you give him a mental break, you move him down in the lineup, do different things. But clearly, Boone still believes his best team has Volpe at shortstop. And again, it's a tough situation. There was plenty of discussion last year in the offseason. Should they have gone after Adames? Should they have made a different move? Should they have shifted Volpe over to a different position? A lot of conversation. Again, there was no crystal ball to know what DJ would necessarily go through, although I think we all saw some of the handwriting on the wall about where DJ's body was just taking him in his career right now. So it's a fascinating set of circumstances. But I do think that Aaron Boone, far more often than not, has gotten the most out of his guys because he will defend them and believe in them to the nth degree. And again, Terry Francona is going to go to the Hall of Fame someday because he basically does that for his guys and has done that in multiple spots. That's usually the way to go, but I understand the Yankee fans who are frustrated, who maybe believe that, you know what, loyalty to a point can sometimes be frustrating for a fan, and I get that too. But you're not going to change who Aaron Boone is, and I think who Aaron Boone is has got his team to the World Series last year, and has done pretty darn well as managing one of the most challenging jobs in all professional sports.
Yeah, it is a very cutthroat position because, I mean, we see it doing a show after every single game. They win, even still, you're getting criticized. When they lose, you're definitely getting criticized. And there's 162 games of that. So, it's kind of all over the place. But my last question for you, John, I'm really interested in Spencer Jones. I think he is going to be really good. But how do you think the Yankees look at their outfield now and beyond? Because, you have Spencer Jones in that equation, potentially, but really, do you see it as he's, there next year in center field, like some people would have you believe? Maybe he gets called up as part of the September call-ups. Or, is this a guy that's bound to be traded, if not during the deadline, over the winter? Like, how do you feel about that? Because it feels to me like this is going to be the decision they make. I mean, it is a crossroads. If they don't trade him at the deadline, there's going to be another opportunity where somebody becomes available. And I guess really the question is he in their long-term plans, or is this a guy that's just like, yeah, valuable asset, we'll keep him and we'll see what happens?
Jake, it's an excellent question. I think that we will know a lot by July 31st. Like basically the next week will tell us a ton. I think we should remember that the jump now from AAA to the big leagues is greater than it's been, I think, at any point in recent history, certainly in the years that I've covered the game. There are guys at AAA who are just unreal. They come up and then they struggle mightily. I just came back from Chicago. We were there, and Matt Shaw's a great example. Debuts this year, gets sent back down, makes some adjustments, comes back up, and he's been better, but not awesome. And I think Yankee fans need to realize that OPSing 1,100 in AAA does not mean it's going to be like a cool 978 when he gets to the Bronx. That's not realistic. Okay, it's just not. He's a big guy with long levers and a long swing. Swing and miss is going to be part of his game. He's not he's not going to come up and be Aaron Judge right away. Or probably ever, if we're being honest. There's only one Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
So I think what I believe is that we will see again in about the next week if he's not traded for a controllable starter or a controllable piece that really is an impactful piece, then they're almost saying that we are not trading him for a Mitch Keller or for a Joe Ryan or a Mackenzie Gore in Washington, someone like that. If you're not trading him for that kind of a guy now, then he really needs to be in your outfield next year. And you look at it and say, if he is as good as the Yankees would be saying that he is, if they're refusing to trade him for those controllable guys, then probably he could, especially when you consider where Grisham's numbers would be salary-wise. Maybe he's a spot where you basically take that roster spot, save some money, promote Jones, and see what he can do. He's 24. There are players that were in the All-Star game last week who are 24 and younger. Okay, so this is, and I'm not saying that he's past his prime all of a sudden, but
it's true.
By the time you're 24, and if you're a can't miss, oh my gosh, like he's not that much younger than Juan Soto. Okay, let's be real here. So that to me, I think sometimes when a college draft is compared to the young kids, he is a way different track than George Lombard Jr. Lombard's 20, okay? Jones is 24. There's a lot of 24-year-olds in the major leagues right now. And so I think that, and again, I just had the same conversation this last couple of days with Owen Casey and the Cubs. If you look up Owen Casey and you look up Spencer Jones, they're putting up very similar numbers right now in the minor leagues for teams that are good and have crowded outfields that have not allowed them to be promoted yet. Again, I would be fascinated to put a little pin in this conversation 3-4 years down the line. Who is having the better career? Is it Casey? Is it Jones? Has Ben Rice become an all-star by then? That's why this is so much fun to talk about. And I always say that eventually deadlines have a way of telling you and telling all of us how these teams feel about a player. And if they believe that Jones could help them get a controllable starter, they need one now. And Jones's numbers are such that his value is on the rise. So if you need Joe Ryan, put Jones in the deal and get him. Mitch Keller, same thing. But if he's too valuable to do that, then he better be out there on opening day next year, because otherwise he'll be 25 by then. And what are we waiting for? That's I think that we have that inflection point, Jake, as you were asking the question. It has arrived, and we're about to find out how the Yankees feel about him.
Now, John, and that point's brilliant. If I had to start podcasting at 20 versus 24, it probably doesn't go the way that this has gone. So, John, I don't know why we wait a year to bring you back. Hopefully we have you back soon. Thank you so much for stopping in at Yankees Unloaded. And, of course, guys, make sure you guys follow him on all platforms.
Gary and Jake, thank you so much. You guys do a great job on the pod. Best wishes for your continued success, and enjoy this next week or so. I know there's ups and downs every day, but this is why we're baseball fans. We love weeks like this. So enjoy it, and hope to see you both at the ballpark here real soon.
Yeah, we'll try.
Likewise, John.
See you soon.
Appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks.